So this isn't something that you start and then do immediately, that you're good at immediately. It's something that you work at over time, that you keep building on, that you keep going back to and improving on. Much like the game, the models in question that we're going to look at today came from. Animal Crossing is a game where you're supposed to build up in little bits and chunks your establishment, be it your island, your town, whatever it is, just as you're meant to build posing over time. Now, there's two models I want to specifically compare today because it's a very complicated topic, and the method that most people are... I do not have it. Oh wait, I do. The method that most people are used to at the moment is ragdoll mover, which is basically every other 3D model viewer method of posing, where you grab a limb and then you do these things. And that's all fine and dandy. I'm not saying that anyone who uses ragdoll mover is wrong, but there's a reason that like Gary's mod isn't used for these types of posing, at least on a grand scale. And the reason is mostly because, well, posing a model like this, which, by the way, for you Splatoon people that do this, this is not how a person stands. In Gary's mod, models are instead supposed to do this. They're meant to ragdoll. Now, for most of the unknowing, ragdolls are floppy. They have weight to them. Now, I've owned this game since the 17th of September 2014, and I can check my purchase history for verification on that. So, you are not going to start off a ragdoll posing master on your first day. I also, for sometimes, would just stare at renders of characters from my favorite games. Not necessarily Splatoon, because I knew how to, like, look at that before with other types of characters, and therefore it wasn't necessarily hard for me to keep going back and do this, so then I can have a somewhat feasible idea of how posing is supposed to work. And these models, when they first came out, were not necessarily the greatest to pose with anyway. They had their fair share of faults, and those were improved on and fixed. They are now very flexible, but not to the point where it's ridiculous. And to those that criticize the no self-collisions angle, where the model will spawn like this, and therefore you're like, how am I supposed to grab the hands? Well, in case you don't know, there's a parameter in the console that you can type in called vcollide wireframe _ wireframe. I didn't mean to type a bracket. I'm just being dumb. And it will show you the collision model of the ragdoll in question. Now, in case you don't realize, what I'm doing when I'm posing these Splatoon models is the hand is here. The hand is here. The hand is also slightly in front of this part, and is also a little bit below its butt. So, you can just grab its hand and toss it up here. And do the same with the other one. This one's a little in front, so you can just toss the leg out, bring the hand up, and then put the leg back. And then put the arm back. Or, instead of back, you can do this with it. Unfortunately, 3D models are not as privileged as we are in being able to individually account for all the little creases and whatevers that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So you will not 100% be able to have a model where you can just pose it like a creature without no self-collisions in some cases. Now, this isn't a total defense video of these particular models, but I just want you to understand, like, I've been posing with these models for a few years now, and models before that, and let me tell you, ragdoll fizz gun posing is most of the reason why a lot of source filmmaker models don't even make it to Gary's Bod in the first place, because, let me tell you, there's a lot of people who do this way of posing because it's just easier. There are things like this, but then they're easy to fix up. And more often than not, you can make a better pose, a more natural pose, than what I showed before, which, and I have seen this, where instead of in 5 seconds relative idea of how a person should stand, instead some people just choose to do this. And I don't mean T-posing, I mean just, where's the shoulder, rotate down, where's the shoulder, rotate down, where's the head, maybe angle it a bit, nothing onto the butt, the legs, nothing. Now, I'm not going to criticize, again, the people who do use Ragdoll Mover, and they have fun with it, and they can actually make good poses that aren't this, but there are people who make poses that are just this, and they're the justification for why the physics models have no effort. And that's not necessarily fair. This is why the actual models, the Animal Crossing models, now it's cleaned out because of the add-on preset thing I was doing a while back, so we're not going to have many other models to compare with. Now, let me open this model again. When you're grabbing a model for the first time, you generally tend to want to have a good idea of where the weight is. These characters' heads are big, so you'd expect the head is the first thing that you're going to want to grab. And this isn't going to differ with the Animal Crossing models. So then, let me start with the bears. Now, since all of the characters are recolors, in that they're the same mesh, the only difference is that the texture is different and the name of the character is different, I'm really going to try to focus on each individual model, especially since the Animal Crossing characters have a base model that they work off, much like how the Inklings have and Octolings have a similar body structure. Okay, I had a really long video planned, but most of it was me just droning on for like 30 minutes on the same point, and it was not all that great, all things considered. It was also kind of mean-spirited, so I just want to make my points quick and concise on these, and I definitely have less than last time because haha, I really just want to go through something, especially since I kind of messed up the point the first time. The Animal Crossing models have a bit of a problem with that's just the console having a spaz. There's a big problem with the Animal Crossing models in terms of posing because, as you can probably see, they twist often to the point of ludicrousy. And, like, the first point I really want to go through is that, like, model parts don't flow with one another. Like, they don't twist how you'd expect the parts to twist. And I'll just get out... I don't have it on me at the moment, but okay, I'll get out a squirrel. For instance, let me just grab the tail. If I twist it this way, it's not expected that, like, this part will also move this way. As well as, like, if I move this leg out, like, this one moves with it. But, like, this doesn't. And it's this, therefore, like, makes it really hard to stand. Like, I'm trying to just put him on the ground here. But, like, his leg is so twisted, it's impossible to find the front. And because the other parts don't follow along and then can end up contorting themselves, it's just really hard to pose with them. And this is with V-Collide on. Most people don't have V-Collide on. And so, therefore, instead of being able to see where the individual collision pieces are, they're just seeing this. And so, like, they'll twist the foot, but then it's like, what's going on here? How am I supposed to twist it? And, that's kind of a problem, because, like, I don't think this body part is meant to twist in this manner. I don't think your leg is meant to twist that far. Even considering the flexibility of the model. Like, I think it's just too much, and it gets really confusing. Because of the nature of, like, the promos of them being really, like, stiff, and they're basically just standing or sitting, there seems to be an extreme focus on making the models ragdoll mover compatible at the expense of people who use the fizz gun, and, like, part of the appeal of making them ragdolls is so then they can flop about. And making them more stiff, so then they don't... Hold on. V-Collide again. Making them floppy. Like, when you're porting to Gmod and you're making them ragdolls, even if they're a little stiff so then they can be moved with the fizz gun, like, they'll still be floppy as a ragdoll when there's nothing holding it up. There are some people like myself, and this is kind of why I don't like posing with a bunch of other programs, is that I like posing with the fizz gun when models work well with it. I actually have more models to test with this time. Or at least, like, one more pack. Here's the Sonic pack by, is it a Pock or Random T Bush? I don't know. Here's Classic Tails. Let me just use him as an example. Like, I can grab his head, and I can drag him out. And, like, then I can drag his tails both up. And then I can drag his arm, and you get the gist. Like, okay, I haven't posed this model in, like, 4 years, but, like, I can grab bits and pieces and understand what I'm doing with them and where to pose them. With this, it's just a lot harder, because body parts move independent of one another. I don't have the birds on me for me to be able to show it as easily. Heck, I didn't enable any of the birds at all. But, like, okay, let me see if I can try and demonstrate this. Here's the foot. And then if I move this, like, it doesn't seem like the top is really moving all that well, and like in comparison to like, it feels like everything is too loose and that it's so easy to twist in all the wrong directions, and it's really hard to pose because like everything feels like it's not attached, right? Because like they're so easy to twist like this. Even if their legs were to break, like I don't think they should look like balloon animals. Because like, which way's the front? Like here? Okay. But like I feel like there's something off about it and I can't really pinpoint it. And like I've played New Horizons, I've dumped my copy of the game as well, but I just don't think it looks right. And then there's instances like Sherb where, let me just his tail has physics, but it's zeroed. You straight up can't pose it. I feel like that's a problem since he's a goat. You would expect to be able to pose the tail and not just by posing the torso, because if you just want to attach to the torso, you can just do what you did with the deer. I don't have them enabled either. But you can just have it attached to the torso, kind of like how the ears are attached to the head here. They don't have physics, but they're just attached to the head. And if I were to advance bone tool them, I can move... Let me go to the right side of his head. I can move his ear, but I can't do that if there is a physics model attached to the bone. Because if I try to move his tail, BIP tail 1, I can't do anything to it. All I can do is scale it, which, I don't think that's what you want to be doing. You straight up can't pose it. It's zeroed. You can't do anything to it. And, I kind of don't think that's, a good idea. Because then you're forced to use Ragdoll Mover, I think, to pose the tail in any way. Which, if you could already give it physics, this isn't a complicated thing. It's pretty much like the head. It really wouldn't have too many constraint problems. It'd be like the head in that regard. Only instead of attaching it to the neck, you'd attach it to the butt. Like, in that way. Like how it rotates around here and it doesn't really go inside. It would just move in every direction around this area of the tail. Because, like, it's really hard, for instance, for me to, like, grab this arm, because then it's, like, this weird contorting happens, and I'm not a fan of it, because it just makes it feel like they're too loose. Because I'll twist this arm, but, like, this part of the arm will not follow as easily. Which is a bit weird because as, like, a full arm, you'd expect that everything would move along. And, like, sure, right now it's doing it, but only because it got stretched the whole way instead of the hand twisted, so the arm should twist. If you twist your arm, your hand's gonna twist with your arm. That's the issue I have with these models, where it's impossible to tell where things are supposed to go. It's just so loose. And I just don't like it. I don't know how ragdolls are, like, made, but, like, I know how they're supposed to feel, because I've owned the game since like 2014, and I wasn't a master then. I have a whole folder of pictures where I basically they were very, very, very bad images, but I don't think, like, okay, this is alright, but, like, should the model... Hold on, let me grab his arm. Should the model really be doing... Should the model really be able to do that? To clip like this? They really need to be tested more, because... The good part about this is that since Animal Crossing characters are made from the same basic mold, and that they're bipeds, that just makes it even easier for them to be fixed. There would be minor different changes to some of them, since some of them are smaller or bigger than others, but a change to one of them would be a change to all of them, and basically just... They really need to be tested more, because it's just so easy to twist and contort, and it's just very difficult to pose with the fizz gun. And it's not a model, it's not a fact of, it's not like... Okay, I finally remembered after like 20 minutes worth of, fixing it up, but basically, like, there are people that pose with the fizz gun too, and I don't really feel like they, and by extension myself, should really be excluded because of lack of testing or something. Because a common thing that seems to happen with the workshop is that someone will upload a pack, a very hype-worthy pack that people are demanding for by, like, hundreds and hundreds of requests, and that person then gets tons and tons of comments and praise and appreciation, and then what happens is that most of those people that put comments of praise and appreciation don't generally tend to go in and test it, or they'll just accept that this is it, even though it could be better, even if they can't necessarily describe why. It's a bit weird that these arms don't flow properly, or something like that. No one else is gonna touch these models because this person is doing it. And I don't necessarily want to say, like, you're bad for doing this, but can you please put in more to these physics models? Because I just don't think this is how an arm should twist. Even if the squirrel were the most flexible model on the planet, it's just weird and very difficult. This wouldn't affect Ragdoll Mover in any way, because that doesn't require physics. Let me just demonstrate that for you. I know this is a bit of common sense here, but I just really want to emphasize that changes to that wouldn't change the ragdoll. Changes to the ragdoll wouldn't affect the ragdoll mover part of it. Because all you're doing is just moving limbs, rotating them, or moving them. Also, I believe with Bob, just what I was doing there is I was trying to find the upper arm L. Let me just get the stamp hose for him. It's really ungodly difficult to find the upper arm for him. So, like, you only get the lower arm, which can do this. It's like, I can't find his upper arm anyway. You should probably fix that as well. But, like, these models shouldn't be ragdoll mover friendly only. It's like, these models are in Gary's mod. Gary's mod, some of its appeal comes from the physics, and I would hope that the models will be easier to pose than this. So, I don't want to ramble for too long and then end up being all mean and grumpy like last time. So, can you please look into the physics of these? It might even help you port to Gary's mod a little bit better. If you can, work with constraints maybe or something. Because, look, I don't know how ragdolls make, but I know how, like, they're supposed to feel, and it's not the way they are currently. So, can something please be done about that? I would hope so, anyway.